Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists. Hello, I'm Dango Rose, and this is the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. In this week's episode, Correspondent Jamie Lammers interviews Reeder John Goldman. Goldman will be performing his unique style of improvisational blues and jazz at the Very Nice Brewing Company in Nederland this weekend.
We hear this week's music mentions from Jamie Lammers, and special correspondent Maryann Rosen will provide some insight on the medicinal and spiritual benefits of psilocybin.
Then for our final story, Dango talks to Jeremy Colbert, a psychedelic integration coach and musical visionary of Taragape. Jeremy gives us some insight about how he helps others approach the use of psilocybin with care, and thereafter, how to reintegrate what one has learned back into the day-to-day.
But first, some news from your neighborhood.
Voting is open for this year's Views from the Top photo contest. You can see all entries both in this week's edition of the Mountaineer newspaper and online. Go to our website and follow the prompt to the page where you can view, vote, and share.
Festival season is in full swing in the mountains. From the Bazaar Cat Bazaar to the NedFest family reunion, we now have a full calendar of events featured on our website. Get links and details to other events like the Ned Jazz Wine Fest, Library Story Time, and when our county and city governments meet to discuss important topics. You can find all of these events and more by visiting the Mountaineer website.
The Mountaineer team has begun working on the Fall Taste of the Peaks. If you have a food or beverage-related business, story, idea, or want to submit a local Colorado recipe for inclusion, contact info@themountaineer.com.
Are you interested in public works? The Gilpin County Public Works Department is hiring a heavy equipment operator. Qualified candidates are encouraged to apply at gilpin.county.gov/careers. Join the team. It's guaranteed to be loads and loads of fun.
Read more local news and feature stories in print and online at themountaineer.com.
And that's it for this week's news briefs. If you have something to share, you can send requests for submission to info@themountaineer.com. As long as it meets our community standards, we'll be sure to include it in a future episode. Brightwood Music has been serving the Peak to Peak region and beyond since opening in 2008. The full-service music store offers new and used instruments and will even repair the ones you've got. Go ahead and check them out on Facebook at Brightwood Music. Brightwood Music is the best music store with altitude across the Peak to Peak.
Now for our lead story, Jamie interviews Reeder John Goldman. Reeder will be playing a show of improvised jazz and blues on Saturday, August 5th at the Very Nice Brewing Company in Nederland.
Hello, my name is Jamie Lammers, and today I'm here with a special musical guest. Do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
My name is Reeder Goldman. How we doing?
So first I wanted to ask, could you talk about some of your musical background?
Yeah, totally. So my mom's a musician. I was born in Chicago, and my mom always played piano growing up, and she also played fiddle, and so I grew up with that around the house. And my dad and mom both used to take me to a bunch of Dead shows when I was younger, and that's the main reason I play music probably was going to Dead shows, just feeling that vibe of the people. And then I grabbed a saxophone in like 8th grade and just fell in love with it. But that just wasn't my scene, was like the jazz and the band. scene was just not my thing. And so I just ended up getting an acoustic guitar probably when I was like 12 and going to dead shows with my family and just jamming with people in the parking lot, jamming with people wherever I could. And honestly, the Grateful Dead are like the biggest influence for me and what got me going. But yeah, no, so my mom and the Grateful Dead are my biggest reasons I play music. And then, yeah, I ended up playing in school. I joined the jazz band again later on, playing guitar, and enjoyed that a lot. And then I grew up playing with so many musicians around here who play in a lot of bands you guys probably know of. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So what exactly about the jazz scene threw you off?
It wasn't necessarily jazz that threw me off. It was just like the structured school style of music, you know what I mean, where everything's on paper, everything's planned and prepped out kind of. And not that jazz is like that, but that's what jazz was in school. It just kind of threw me off a little. And then I started playing with like bluegrass kids and kids who played heavy rock, whatever. I mean, I like all sorts of music, but the free jamming improvisation is what really grabbed me, that world. And then nowadays I'm playing mostly acoustic solo stuff just because that's what my circumstances are. I'd rather be in a band, and I have been in bands. I just, where I'm at right now, it's just all I really got. So, but yeah, that whole world of jamming. But I love Bob Dylan's my hero. You know what I mean? Steve Earle. I mean, so many guys in the solo acoustic world I love as well. But the main thing that got me into music was improvisation and the conversation of music.
So do you perform original songs or covers?
It's about half and half right now. I started writing probably 5-6 years ago. I started writing my own stuff and co-writing with people. But yeah, I mean, my library isn't big enough yet. So do a full original bunch of shows or whatever. It's more half and half.
And would you say that improvisation is a huge part of how you write?
That's literally how I write too. I mean, it all starts from the guitar always, where I just am jamming different chord progressions and different random lines that are all obviously probably inspired by other bands. You know what I mean? Everything's kind of been played again and again through all of time. And yeah, that basically gets me to write my own. And then I'll just sit and write over my own stuff afterwards, usually. The best songs always come out at once, obviously. I mean, those are the ones that you start playing and the lyrics just come out and it all just meshes together. That only happens so often. It's pretty rare for any musician I know to just be constantly doing that.
Who are some other musical artists that have brought inspiration to you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the classic bluegrass and stuff, Bill Monroe and Del McCoury, and then also Yonder in the mid-era of bluegrass, like, or the newgrass era, really. I mean, Yonder was huge in my childhood. I grew up in the Ned Boulder area, and Yonder and String Cheese and Leftover Salmon and bands like that were always playing around, and those guys are huge influences as well. Not even just in music, but just in vibes as people. The whole scene is just, I love it, you know. Everyone's kind of a family without even being family in that world, which is not always the case in music.
Is there something special to you about being able to perform live?
Yes, live is everything to me. I like recording, I love it, but there's something about the connection between a crowd and other musicians on stage, or even just by yourself, whatever it is, just the live aspect and the scene of like a concert. I just love it.
What do you hope that audience members take away from your shows when they come and see you?
The passion. I mean, I have a lot of passion, and I put my heart out on every song I do. And even people I've met who don't like the style of music that I listen to or play can usually understand that there's the heart and soul aspect and appreciate that. That's what it's about.
And you mentioned earlier that you were in a band.
I am, and we're in a weird limbo right now. So our drummer moved to Detroit, and he can come out sometimes, but we're basically kind of looking for a new drummer. But everything else, I mean, once we can get that flowing, we're going to go for it. And that band's called Clifton Hanger.
Finally, I wanted to ask, how long have you been in this band?
Like 5 years, and we're a Western Slope band. Totally represent Paonia. I don't know if you ever heard of Paonia, but it's funny because me and the other guy, the bass player, Caleb, we started the band, and we're both from Boulder, but we started it out there, so we'd like to represent out there, kind of our home base when it comes to creativity.
Thank you so much to Reeder Goldman for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. If you want to see him performing solo, be sure to check him out at Very Nice Brewing Company at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Nederland on Saturday, August 5th, 2023 at 5 p.m.
Thank you, Jamie. You can also read a more in-depth article about Reeder written by Jamie in this week's edition of the Mountaineer newspaper.
Now we go to correspondent Jamie Lammers, who will be delivering this week's Music Mentions.
And now for this week's Music Mentions. Head to Busey Brews, located at 70 East 1st Street in Nederland on Sunday, August 6th at 2 p.m. to see Hunter Leppi performing live. Head to the Canyon Tavern, located at 32138 Highway 72 in Coal Creek Canyon on Saturday, August 5th at 6 p.m. to see Neil Z performing live. Head to the Gold Hill General Store at 531 Main Street in Gold Hill on Sunday, August 6th at 4 p.m. to see the Foggy Tops Bluegrass Band performing live. Head to the Gold Hill Inn, located at 401 Main Street in Gold Hill on Friday, August 4th at 8 p.m. to see Liver Down the River performing live, and on Sunday, August 6th at 5:30 p.m. to see Dan Hochman performing live. Head to Howland Wind Brewing, located at 51A Main Street in Rollinsville on Saturday, August 5th at 5 p.m. to see Riverspell performing live. Head to the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown on Wednesday, August 2nd at 5 p.m. for an open mic night, on Thursday, August 3rd at 7 p.m. for a High Lonesome performance, on Friday, August 4th at 7 p.m. for a Seeing Stars Band performance, and on Sunday, August 6th at 12:15 p.m. for a David Tillman performance. Head to JKQ Barbecue, located at 200 Gregory Street in Blackhawk on Friday, August 4th and Saturday, August 5th at 6 p.m. to see Robbie Wicks performing live. Head to Knotted Root Brewing, located at 250 North Caribou Street in Nederland on Friday, August 4th at 6 p.m. to see Wanderin' Pine performing live. You can also check them out every Sunday at 5 p.m. for Jazz Sundays with Black Dog and Friends. Head to the Nederland Farmers Market, located at 85 East 1st Street in Nederland on Sunday, August 6th, starting at 10:30 a.m. to see Robbie Wicks performing live. Head to the United Center, located at 1440 Colorado Boulevard in Idaho Springs on Sunday, August 6th at 6 p.m. to see the Burney Sisters performing live. And finally, head to the Very Nice Brewing Company, located at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Nederland on Friday, August 4th at 6 p.m. to see Chris Smith performing live, on Saturday, August 5th at 5 p.m. to see Reeder John Goldman performing live, and on Sunday, August 6th at 5 p.m. to see Jackson Maloney performing live. Did we miss you or your performances? Want to submit your music listing in the Peak to Peak area? Do you have updates to your business or to your performances? Please call 303-810-5409 or email info@themountaineer.com to be included in the next print edition or the next podcast of The Mountain Ear.
Thank you, Jamie. Now let's drop in with special correspondent Maryann Rosen, who shares a fascinating tale about the medicinal and spiritual uses of psilocybin in modern society.
Mushrooms, delicious, and many studies are showing health benefits. Some of these are a decrease in the risk of cancer, a decrease in cholesterol, a protection of brain and immune system health, and being a good source of vitamin D. But what about those mushrooms containing psilocybin, though? Those magic mushrooms. With Colorado legalizing them at the end of 2022, it seems like a great time to look into their benefits. Psilocybin mushrooms have been used by the indigenous peoples of Mexico and Central America for hundreds of years as a sacrament. When taking these mushrooms for spiritual reasons, often prayers of gratefulness were offered to the spirit of the plants. They were used to dissolve ego, connect with people's bodies, higher selves, nature, or the universe. And this was long before studies at Johns Hopkins University showed that high doses of psilocybin could be safely used to occasion a mystical experience. After the Spanish conquest, Roman Catholic missionaries suppressed the use of magic mushrooms, and psilocybin was driven underground. Mushrooms made a resurgence in the 1950s when many in the psychiatric establishment regarded psilocybin as a miracle drug. They were used to treat alcoholism, depression, OCD, and anxiety connected to those at the end of their lives, often with impressive results. Prior to 1965, more than 1,000 scientific studies and papers were done and written on psychedelic drug therapy, including psilocybin. Although done by major universities such as Harvard, NYU, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, and Boston University, not all of the studies were well controlled by current standards. In the 1960s, a very flamboyant, very gifted researcher named Timothy Leary, and his partner Richard Alpert, also known as Ram Dass, began the Harvard Psilocybin Project. Although early research was extremely promising, Timothy Leary decided to branch out on his own. His antics, love of publicity, and his becoming sloppy with his scientific methods put an end to the project. This, along with an increase in illicit use of psilocybin, which by then had been made illegal, a moral panic engulfing psychedelics, stories, some of them myths, about strange behaviors while using mushrooms or people having flashback trips, and definite myths being spread about psychedelics scrambling chromosomes led to the end of more than 20 years of very fertile research. The government pulled all funding and serious research was purged from universities. An unlikely supporter, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, cautioned against banning valuable research because of myths and some illicit drug use. In the 1990s, there was a revival of sanctioned scientific research. Studies performed with attention paid to mindset, setting, and using proper guides again showed promise, with no serious adverse events reported. In 2006, Roland Griffith performed the most rigorously designed, double-blind, placebo-controlled, peer-reviewed clinical study ever, examining the psychological effects of psilocybin. The study showed that psilocybin can occasion mystical and spiritual experiences, provoking experiences of stunning insight and beauty, an abundance of love, the lessening of ego, and the ability to communicate truthfully without becoming defensive and with no inhibitions. All of this, along with the formerly known therapeutic possibilities, and with the support of the National Institute of Drug Abuse under 2 Republican presidents, there was an expansion of research. A study in 2010 showed that a single guided journey helped terminal cancer patients to lose their fear of death and the anxiety surrounding that fear, and their remaining months were lived with a much better quality. Extensive rigorous studies in 2014, 2016, and 2017 showed that psilocybin was an effective treatment against disorders at the low entropy end of the spectrum by disrupting patterns. These disorders included addiction, OCD, depression, smoking cessation, and eating disorders. Significant reductions in depression and anxiety were found using the standard measures. The reduction lasted about 6 months. Other studies showed promising results in the treatment of arthritis, pain, headaches, chronic Lyme disease, allergies, bipolar II, Parkinson's, and alcoholism. Universities and institutions currently doing research, and yes, more research needs to be done, are, to name just a few, Yale, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Boston University, Northwestern, the University of Colorado, Mount Sinai Icahn and NYU Schools of Medicine, and Mass General Hospital in Boston. A caveat to all of this is that not all mushrooms have the same potency, and not all people respond the same way. Too little or too much may be not impactful enough or too impactful. And there are some rare bad journeys. Most studies, though, show that used with the right mindset and setting, outside with music, nature, and incense is always good, and with a proper guide who knows what they are doing, sometimes having someone to help you reintegrate after your journey, and using magic mushrooms with respect and good intentions, then they are good medicine. Speaking of intentions, studies and data show that the top reasons people give for using psilocybin mushrooms are 4 medicinal reasons, self-exploration, self-healing and understanding, problem-solving, and sexual enhancement, in that order. The lowest reasons given were curiosity or recreational use. One interesting fact is that less research has been done on low doses or microdosing psilocybin. There is far less scientific evidence about what the benefits are. Anecdotal evidence, however, seems to indicate that minds become more focused and that one becomes more in tune with their emotions, and often people have a better comprehension of ideas and thoughts that were previously elusive. So as for now, serious research moves forward, and it does appear that with this research, we are headed to a day in the near future where physical, mental, and spiritual health may include the use of psilocybin mushrooms.
If you are a visual artist in the Peak to Peak area and want to include your studio, gallery, or workspace in the fall Peak to Peak studio tour, then go to themountaineer.com and sign up today. It is free to join, and artists will showcase their finest work to visitors and art lovers in all autumn splendor. Again, to sign up, visit themountaineer.com and follow the links to the Peak to Peak studio tour. That was a piece of Spirit Maze by Taragape. Next, Dango speaks with Jeremy Colbert, psychedelic integration coach and musical visionary of the Terrapin. Jeremy offers some insight about how he helps others approach the use of psilocybin with care, and thereafter, how to reintegrate what one has learned back into the day-to-day.
Hi, Jeremy. Could you begin by introducing yourself to our listeners?
My name is Jeremy Colbert. I also go by Taragape. I'm a musician and I release music under that name. And I am an integration coach that helps people really integrate the earth medicine experience, as I like to say, things like psilocybin, ayahuasca, DMT, and Wachuma San Pedro.
That's beautiful, Jeremy. Can you tell us what inspired you to become an integration coach?
Yes. Well, my experience on what people call the medicine path began in late 2014, and I had a very kind of earth-shattering experience with DMT, dimethyltryptamine. That was incredibly beautiful and profound, though I didn't have a lot of support around it. I was in a deep transition period, and I was left feeling very confused and very alone in trying to come to terms with what I had experienced. And then that led me to work with psilocybin, which psilocybin led me to work with ayahuasca in Peru. And it was all really, really beautiful experiences. And in the moment, with a lot of these compounds, everything feels, like it makes a lot of sense, even if it's a very otherworldly experience. And so for me, the challenge was coming back to where I lived in Pittsburgh at the time, in the city, playing in a folk rock band. I like to joke. I took ayahuasca in between a bar and a brewery. I had a gig prior to, and when I returned as a folk rock artist. And for me, coming back into, the concrete jungle, and then several weeks going by and the afterglow wearing off, and then not really feeling like I had support was, a way for me to do some deep, introspection into how I needed to support myself. And then just as things unfolded and I continued to develop my own practice, particularly with psilocybin, I realized that I was able to show up and support others in certain ways. And then that's when I realized very synchronistically that the actual term of integration coach was a thing, and it was a burgeoning field. So it was a lot of following the breadcrumbs. It was a lot of doing my own work, and it was a lot of just aligning to what was already happening in the collective as well, with people starting to really emerge as this new field of, through this new field of integration coaching.
And which medicines do you work with most through your integration coaching?
I am comfortable with helping people integrate experiences with psilocybin, ayahuasca, DMT, and San Pedro or Wachuma. Those are the earth medicines or the entheogens that I have developed a relationship with. And I will say that my closest relationship is with psilocybin and then ayahuasca and then DMT, kind of in that order, and then DMT and then Wachuma or San Pedro cactus, which is mescaline. So I do support people, though in my own practice, the most, as I said, the most close relationship I have is with psilocybin. So that kind of is, the default. And it's also, a medicine that grows most easily. It's the most sustainable. It's just a very accessible medicine here in the U.S. And laws are changing in Colorado and all around the country. So, yeah, those are the ones that I work with.
Jeremy, do you have any advice to share with anyone who may be considering embarking on such a journey?
Yes, definitely. So what comes to mind is that if one is working with an earth medicine, such as we've been talking about, it's really, really important to make sure that there's a lot of talk of set and setting, which is mindset and the setting you're in. And it goes beyond that. It really goes into the energy of the space, the energy you're carrying in. These compounds are non-specific amplifiers, which basically means whatever we're bringing into these experiences in our consciousness has the tendency to be amplified. And so if one is going into these experiences, it's very important to really consider having someone to hold space and someone of integrity, someone with experience. And the other piece is that as a musician and as someone who's experienced ceremonial music and shamanic music firsthand, the music portion is incredibly, incredibly important as well. And if you don't have someone who's playing music in the space, a curandero, or someone who brings medicine music in, it's really important to have music as an anchor. And that's another passion of mine, is to create music playlists for people to journey with. So people are welcome to find my playlist on Spotify, Music by J, the letter J, Music by J. You can find a whole range of playlists. Ideally, I'd love to be there in person to support, but in the least, it's so good to have those energetic anchors. And people of integrity with experience is the number one, and number two is music. So, yeah, and it's a practice. It's all a practice and develops over time, and there is support out there. And just know that you're not alone. Know that the full spectrum of experience is there, the bliss and the devastating challenge sometimes, and it's all fruitful for your growth if you can take the steps to proactively integrate it.
Thank you, Jeremy, for taking the time to speak with us today. We understand that this approach to healing and self-discovery may not be for everyone, yet it is comforting to know that there are people that offer safety, guidance, care, and support through the earth medicine experience.
That concludes this week's episode of the Mountain Air Podcast, where everybody's listening.
Visit our website at www.themountaineer.com to read more information about today's guests. Pick up a copy of this week's print edition of The Mountaineer at newsstands all across the Peak to Peak. I'm Dango Rose.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. Thank you for listening.
You name it, we got it. Up here in the mountains, Things are weird.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak-to-Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.